We should just copy and paste in there. You got to adjust some column width. That's not a big deal. So here, remember on a spreadsheet, I could either make them wider by grabbing the right side of the column heading, or what I could do is take all of those cells and let them wrap. So under Format, I can choose Wrap Cells, not merge, just wrap, text wrapping, there it is. And that way they can take up, the row just expands, which sometimes looks better. All right, so back to the worksheet for a minute. So some things to consider, definitely read through this later. I'm not going to read all through that right now. We're just going to start applying it. So absolute change is where you just take the difference from one number to another number. And we did that a little bit yesterday, and we worked on percent change too. So we're going to do that in the spreadsheet here. Give this a name before I forget. So this is lesson 6% change. So you could do it all on a calculator if you want, but I think a spreadsheet's way more useful. So we want to find how much the population has changed from 2000 to 2010. So to do that, I want to take the latter number, 2010, and subtract the earlier number, 2000. So that tells me here it went up by about 100,000. Since the formula for that is going to be the same on each row, it's going to be this number minus that number. I don't have to keep going click minus click. I can just take that formula, click on it once, then point to the bottom right corner and fill it down. Blow that up a little. Percent change. How do we calculate that? Do you remember? Yeah, I used to do a division. And so it takes this is what I called the difference in class yesterday. So absolute change is also called just the difference. When we compare two numbers, we can compare by subtraction, or we can compare by division. So here, what I want to do is just take that percent change. Which number should I divide by, the 2000 or the 2010? 2000, because 2000 is what I'm comparing to. So, because notice I have a positive number here, because the population went up from 2000 to 2010. So 2000 is my base amount. I'm comparing to that. So I'd want to divide by the 2000. And sometimes it's hard to figure out which one you're comparing. So do it both ways and try and figure out which one makes most sense if you're not sure. Absolute change is just difference, subtraction. Yeah, so I just do subtraction on that. And percent change is where I take the absolute and I divide by the base amount. So this right here is my base amount. And this one right here is my new amount. I should have that as a percentage. Usually I like to go 1 or 2 decimal places in the percent version. Remember, percent just shifts the decimal place over to it. It was 0.14, now it's 14 point. And again, it's the same idea all the way down. So that's the nice thing about a spreadsheet. I don't have to over and over again go back to my calculator. The spreadsheet just whips that out for me. Okay. So those are the numbers we get from that. For the South Atlantic region, I would just sum these guys up. And there's a couple ways to get the sum formula. I'm zoomed in on my screen, but on a regular screen, you'll see this button right here in the upper right corner. It's in Excel, it's in Google Sheets. When you click that, you get the sum option. And once that pops up, you just highlight what you want to add up. Same idea, I want to add up all the populations in 2000, so I could either repeat that or I could just say, hey, drag that over here. Okay. As far as the absolute change, there, I don't want to sum those changes up really. What I want to do is take the absolute change of these two numbers. So I'm just going to take this difference formula and fill it down. So you always have to think when the formula changes, do you want to keep filling across or do you have to fill down because there's a different way to calculate? And the percent change, again, I'm going to fill down there. I'm going to highlight this row because it's not a state, it's a whole region. And then I'm going to have you guys do this, and I'll come around and help in just a little bit. All right, so don't worry about filling this out on paper because you're going to do a spreadsheet and then you're going to send that spreadsheet to me through Canvas. So you're not going to have to fill that out on paper. But we can use this to answer some questions. So let's see, what kind of questions do we want to answer? And then I'm going to group you all up. Some of you are going to work on the South Atlantic states, some of you are going to work on the mountain states. All right, so the next page says that we're going to calculate the absolute change. We got it. We're going to calculate the percent change or relative change. We got it. And then list the order of the 3 states that changed the most in absolute population. So some states changed a lot through regular just numbers, but percent change is pretty different. So let's take a look at that in the table. So first, which state had the largest number of people for change? Georgia, or I think maybe Florida? Yeah. And you can sort things in a spreadsheet. Sorting can be kind of tricky when there's multiple columns. So to sort this, what I would do, I think I'm going to put a heading here, state. What's that? Absolute change is what I'm focusing on first. Yeah, I know the question said percent change, but I just want to look at absolute change first. So absolute change, Florida had the biggest change, right? Percent change, if we look at that column, 18.46, does anything beat that? I think it's North Carolina, right? Yeah. If there were more states, wouldn't you agree it'd be even harder to look at this? So what we can do is we can tell the spreadsheet to sort it. So usually what I do there is I highlight just the stuff I want to sort. I don't want this bottom in the sort because that's not a state. So I highlight those and then I go to data. Now, if I just go sort the whole sheet, that's not really what I want. I want to sort the range of stuff I selected. A range is any group of cells you select. So I usually don't use these quick buttons here. I go to range. Now my data has a header row, and the nice thing about that is I can say, hey, do I want to sort by state? Do I want to sort by population in 2010 or absolute change or percent change? So then I can say, well, please sort those by percent change. And then it says, do you want to sort them A to Z? So that would be smallest to largest or largest to smallest. We wanted to know the state with the largest percent change, so I would go Z to A. That'll put the highest one at the top. And if you get it wrong, just redo it, no big deal. So I hit sort, and it just shuffles those right there. Notice it kept the headings at the top, right? And the nice thing about always select your header row, because otherwise you got to remember what's in column A, what's in column B, what's in column C, and that can be a pain. So here it's pretty clear. Yeah, North Carolina is the winner there, and then Georgia comes in second, Florida third, South Carolina is fourth in terms of percent change. If we shuffle them again by absolute change, we'll get a different answer. So I can re-highlight data, sort, have it has a header row, helps me figure out what's what, and I can sort by absolute change instead and do it. They call this descending when you point to it. Come on, tell me. Ascending, descending. And you can put other sorts in there in case there's ties. You can have a tiebreaker column to go with it. All right, so here if we sort by absolute numbers, Florida had the biggest increase in population. Georgia was next, and South Carolina. So we're going to get different answers depending on how we sort. Percent change, absolute change. Yeah, so the 1834 is still with Georgia, and the 1846 is still with North Carolina. So everything stayed in the right row when I sorted that. The order now?
In the percent change.
Say it again, what's your question?
Like, because before it, like, was just on there, how we put it on there.
Yeah.
And so
it was by, yeah, so there was some order of the states over here.
Put it back in random.
So right now, no, I just resorted by absolute change. So now.
All the columns like in order at the same time?
No, because well, then it would separate them from each other.
Okay.
So if I tried to sort absolute change and percent change at the same time, then the 18% would be up here, and then it would be with Florida, not Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. So this is super important. When you sort, don't just grab a column and sort it, because then it will separate the percents from the states that own it.
Oh, okay.
So that's why. Good question. Okay, now I got you. That's why I highlight everything that's related before I hit sort.
Okay.
Otherwise, you mix up the data. You lose track of who goes with what. Okay, yeah, so super important, highlight everything first, because if I didn't do that, if I just, let me do this. Let's put them in alphabetical order first. So sort range by state. Why are people moving to Georgia? I don't know. They have peaches. They get some pretty nice weather. They have some coastline.
Retirement? I mean, I can see it with Florida because that's retirement, but.
Florida's too damn hot. Man. I don't think Georgia's as hot as Florida. I lived in Florida for a little bit. I didn't like it.
Want somewhere warm that doesn't have
Somewhere warm without flooding issues. I mean,
You can dress though.
yeah, I mean Georgia's. I lived in Alabama for a while, which is similar to Georgia, it just doesn't have coast. And it was pretty hot and humid in the summer. The winters were cool, but cool was 60, 70. But it wasn't too bad in the summer. So let's get back here. So if I just sort that column right there, I'm going to screw up the data. So I can go sort range, and I would say it has a header row. And if I sort it, it's going to separate stuff. It didn't do it.
changed, but not.
Interesting.
It
It didn't do it. Well, I sorted alphabetically by state first, and then I just tried to sort that range, and Google apparently said, no, not going to do it. That'll screw up your data. Interesting. That's something new. Sort, data, percent change, A to Z. Oh, Google's like, no, that's bad. Oh, that's awesome. Good job, Google. What if I really wanted to do it though? Huh, I'll have to look into that. Let me make a note. Google wouldn't sort one column. Weird. I'm kind of glad, but there are some circumstances where I might want that to happen. All right.
It wasn't like numbers.
I don't know. All right, let's get back to the worksheet here. So let's see, what do I want to look at next? We're going to skip on down. Let's see. Do we have Michigan on here? We don't. All right, so we're going to jump on down to number 7, and then after that, I'm going to set you guys free to go work on this in the lab, and I'll walk around and help. And then Daisy, I'll just check in with you here on the computer. So Michigan population changed from, so this is going from 2000 to 2010. In 2000, it was 9,800,000. In 2010, 9,900,000. So, did I get that right? 2000
It got smaller.
from, oh wait, no, I got that backwards.
So, you said
The population changed to, okay, so the first number is the 2010 number because it changed from, okay, that's the 2000 number right there. Yeah, so here we have a decrease. So calculate that decrease, whip out your calculator, and then calculate the relative change, which is also percent change, and round that to the nearest hundredth of a percent, and then we'll see if we agree on this.
the relative change was supposed to track when you get out.
Yeah, so relative change, you would subtract and get a negative number, and that would be a decrease, yeah. I'm gonna copy this into my sheet here, so I can work on it. Calculator out. All right. So, 2010. 9833640. 2000. 93844. Difference. What? 104,804? Yeah, negative. So the population went down by 104,804.
This is representatives, that means,
What's that?
this is representatives, that mean like, isn't that be enough to use representatives?
So in Congress, we have representatives, we have senators, and representatives are based on population. So if the population drops, a state could lose a representative in Congress.
No, they were like, I don't.
Yeah, and I can't remember the calculation on how they do that, but they divvy it up every 10 years based on the U.S. Census, who gets what. So this means, right, we have a drop in population. So next we want to calculate the percent change. Which would be to take that negative 104,804 and divide by the 2000 population, because that's our base amount. 9,938,444. So divide by, and I get about, as a decimal, negative 0.01054. So I'm going to list a few more than I need. We need to change that to a percent, so we have to shift that decimal point twice. Yeah, just multiply by 100, same thing. And so I get a percent change of about 1 point, and we wanted to go to the nearest hundredth of a percent, is that right? 100th of a percent. So this would be 10th of a percent. That would be 100th of a percent. So it would be 1.05%. It is a negative, yeah. So the population in Michigan dropped by about 1.05% from 2000 to 2010. And it's not unusual for some states to drop in population. I mentioned I grew up in Rhode Island, and that state over the years has gone up and down, oscillating around 1 million people. So when I left, it was like 980,000-ish. Now it's up over 1 million again. So suppose I come to you and said, oh my God, Michigan got serious trouble. 100,000 people left the state. Would you be like, oh my God, 100,000 people, that's a lot of people. Then someone else says, we only lost 1%. Like, 1%, so what? Right? So whether you state absolute change versus relative change can change the meaning on how you think about it. Okay? So sometimes and they're both important numbers, but the difference here is only important if you know the base amount also. So, and sometimes just a percent on its own isn't all that meaningful if you don't have the base amount either. So either one doesn't have a full picture of the information. They're just part of the story. All right, so there's number 9 is along that lines. You could state an argument with a difference, the absolute change. You could also state an argument with relative change, and it kind of depends on what your point of view is. If you want to get people's attention, wouldn't 100,000 give you more attention than 1% maybe? Or maybe you don't want to get attention. You say, oh, it was only 1%, it's no big deal, don't worry about it, right? So there's different points of view. You can kind of shift the meaning a little bit by choosing one number over another number. It's kind of deceptive, but people do that all the time, unfortunately, especially in politics. All right, so I'm gonna shut up here, and what you guys are gonna do is, if you have a computer with you, fine, just take it into the other room. Those of you who don't have a computer, get on a computer, and I would recommend working on this spreadsheet, but if you want to check on getting one of those other ones turned in, I can help with that too. And then Daisy, if you have any questions, let me know. You're probably already working on your computer.
Yeah.
2-1, 2-3.
2-1, 2-3, and 2-5 with the other spreadsheets. Yeah. Do you have any questions on the spreadsheet, Daisy?
No.
You doing pretty good?
Yeah.
Have you tried answering any of the questions in 2.6?
I haven't read any of the questions
Okay,
since I'm doing the spreadsheet first.
okay. So for turning it in, do both sheets. But for answering the questions, you're just going to base questions 1 through 6 on one of the sheets.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'll come back here in a few minutes and check on you, see if you have any questions.
Okay.
All right, I'll be back in a minute. Going okay, Daisy?
Yeah.